Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about a CNN panel where Ryan Girdusky, who is a friend of the channel, and by the way, absolutely hilarious, destroyed Mehdi Hasan with one quip, one joke, and Mehdi Hasan has decided to throw a fit over it. CNN has decided to ban Ryan over it, despite the fact that just prior to that, Mehdi Hasan was making the case that Trump and his supporters were Nazis, and of course, that leads people to believe that we should do things to them that we did to the Nazis, which of course was fight a war against them. But apparently Mehdi Hasan can dish it, but definitely can't take it. So Ryan totally destroyed him with one line, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. Now we're gonna get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
So we're gonna get to the quip and the backlash in just a moment, but I think it's important that you guys see the actual setup to this, because the whole point of this was that Trump is Hitler, Trump supporters are Nazis, fascist Nazis, and all that.
Emotions are very high. We're 8 days out from the election, right? No question about it. I don't think either side is innocent of inflammatory rhetoric, for sure. I mean, look what's happened. I don't think the president could have expected not to do this massive rally, which quite frankly was historic. Came out there, and the media is just, oh, you know, he's a Nazi, it's Hitler, and all this crazy stuff that they were saying. So I think, in many respects, that rhetoric is much worse than what you just played there.
Just to be clear, Hitler has entered the conversation because his chief of staff said that Trump, not the media, but Trump was the one who brought up Hitler.
And five people who were there said it didn't.
Okay,
Yeah,
exactly. You're mixing.
So right off the top, I want to point out that Abby Phillip is starting out with a lie. She's saying that Hitler only entered the conversation related to Trump when his chief of staff said that Trump praised Hitler. Now, to be clear about this, it is in dispute whether or not Trump said that. Ryan is correct in that regard. But the idea that the left has just started comparing Trump or Republicans to Hitler in the last week or so is crazy, absurd, and ridiculous. They've been doing this to the evil orange man since 2015, since the moment he went down the escalator. And by the way, they did it to George W. Bush. They did it to Herbert Walker Bush. They did it to Ronald Reagan. They did it to candidates like John McCain and Mitt Romney. So this is standard fare for the Democratic playbook. They decided to bring this up. They decided to introduce this, and they were running photos, by the way, of a Nazi rally from 1939 at Madison Square Garden, saying that Trump is having his first rally ever since that one politically at that location, when of course that's not true. Of course, there are two different Democratic conventions that happened at Madison Square Garden. John F. Kennedy had a rally at Madison Square Garden, but this is where they go, and they'll lie directly to your face about it, even though it's absurd on its face.
Anecdotes, that's not what
actually Hitler entered the conversation because his running mate actually compared him to Hitler.
Well,
that's when it actually entered the conversation years ago. No. That's how we brought Hitler into this conversation, because the person that Donald Trump picked to be his running mate compared him to Hitler. And then he changed his mind. Fine, change your mind. But then somebody else verified.
We played the clips. Right?
Okay, but the media did not just say that Trump was Hitler. The media was saying that everyone who attended was Hitler. The reason yes, they did. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Over and over. They call them. Anyone who attends
hang on just a second.
Are Nazis?
Hang on just one second. Okay, because it's the hyperbole that's getting me.
Again, these people are just lying. The left has been labeling Donald Trump and Republicans Hitler for years, and any excuse that it wasn't them is absurd on its face. And by the way, Mehdi Hasan is about to enter the fray and double down on the Hitler comparison, as these people are saying, we're not saying it. We would never allege that because that's who he is.
You said the media called everyone who attended that rally Hitler?
Yes, they did.
Okay,
so when you attend that rally, you are a fascist. Okay. That is what they said.
Well, let's talk about this table right here.
Okay, I don't know what anyone said yesterday. I wasn't all your
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
Ryan,
I just watched
that did not happen.
Yes, it did.
And waiting for people like you to maybe say something.
It 100% happened.
Yes, this is 100% true. When they show you the photos of the 1939 Nazi Party rally at MSG, and then they compare and contrast that to the Trump supporters rallying, they are claiming that those Trump supporters are just like them. They are the Nazis. This is not difficult. They've done this for a very long time. If you'll recall the whole punch a Nazi phenomenon from back in 2015 when these people were endorsing violence against Trump supporters. Again, this is not in dispute, but CNN likes to live in unreality. So in unreality, they're pretending that nobody ever said this, even though they precisely did.
Didn't even get through all the clips. There was still Tucker Carlson doing replacement. Don Jr. did replacement. And then Trump himself turned up and talked about invading and occupying our country, which is the language of the far right. He talked about enemy of the people, which is Joseph Goebbels. He talked about the enemy within, which is literally Hitler.
So here we have Mehdi Hasan doing the Hitler owned a dog thing. If anything that was ever said, any phrase even sounds remotely similar, as long as it's a Republican, as long as it's somebody that they're trying to demonize, then therefore Hitler might have done something similar, like own a dog or drink water or whatever. We all understand where this is going. We all understand how deceptive this tactic is, but get ready for Mehdi Hasan to push it one step further.
I mean, these are my problem is, I get it. Nobody wants to be called Nazis. It's very inflammatory. But if you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
So right here, Mehdi Hasan says, if you don't want to be called Nazis all the time, then stop acting like Nazis. Again, him labeling his political opposition, the American right wing, the Nazis. And Ryan actually responds with some sage advice for Mehdi Hasan that he should think about.
You don't call an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people will sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite.
Now, this is 100% exactly true. Mehdi Hasan is called an anti-Semite more than anybody at the table, and the point of Ryan bringing this up is to tell Mehdi Hasan, if you are somebody who thinks you are being unfairly labeled anti-Semite, and that's something that you complain about, then maybe you should be a little bit more cautious about throwing around the Nazi label to everyone that you disagree with. But of course, Mehdi Hasan never sees any hypocrisy in his own actions. Heaven forbid he have some personal self-reflection, but this leads to the ultimate exchange, and honestly, A+ for the way that Ryan thought of this quip on the fly.
I get it. Nobody wants to be called Nazis. It's very inflammatory. But if you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
You don't call an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table. Yeah. And people will sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. Okay. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die.
So that was hilarious from top to bottom. And I feel the need to explain this to everybody out there in the audience because Mehdi Hasan and, of course, a bunch of his allies have decided that they're going to lie about this joke, pretend that it wasn't funny, pretend that he didn't just hit the nail on the head, and say that Mehdi Hasan was just threatened by Ryan Girdusky when nothing could be further from the truth. And by the way, this of course includes Mehdi Hasan himself. Cenk Uygur tweeted about this. Anna Kasparian, very unfortunately, tweeted about him being threatened on CNN, when I just want to ask anybody, what was the actual threat? Because what this was a joke related to the pagers exploding of Hezbollah, and Ryan saying, I hope that your beeper doesn't go off. This is obviously a joke. It's a clever joke because Hezbollah has been attacking Israel in solidarity with the October 7th attacks, claiming that they're doing so in order to protect the Palestinians because they support the Palestinians, when in reality, when you look at the conditions on the ground, you realize that there's no justification at all whatsoever for Hezbollah to attack. And by the way, for everybody who's trying to justify the actions of Hezbollah, let's be absolutely clear about the history in this region because it's completely unambiguous. Lebanon and Israel are engaged in a war. It ends in 2006. There's a unanimous UN resolution called UN Resolution 1701 that calls for Israel to move out of southern Lebanon and creates a blue line where Hezbollah specifically is not supposed to enter. Yet we see report after report in the nearly 2 decades that followed of Hezbollah violating those lines, entrenching their position, Israel going to the UN, taking the proper course of action in order to complain about it, and then on October 8th, in solidarity with the October 7th attacks, Lebanon starts bombing Israel, displacing 60,000 people. And even as Israel moves to return their people to their homes, they actually are complaining that the UN security forces, the peacekeeping force that is meant to keep Israel and Hezbollah out of the buffer zone, aren't doing their job in Hezbollah. And yet all these different people pretend that Israel is in the wrong and they're doing an unprovoked attack on Hezbollah when it couldn't be more clear. And in addition to that, while Hamas is definitely weaker as a fighting force, Hezbollah is a more functioning military than the Lebanese military, and in terms of manpower, they're close to the equivalent of the Israeli armed forces. So you have a conventional army, even though they're a militia group technically, because they're not the Lebanese army, that is violating international law, violating the terms of a peace agreement in the buffer zone, attacking Israel, displacing 60,000 people. And yet all of the people who said it was about disproportionate force and Israel violating international law and all those different various things are somehow defending Hezbollah. Unsurprising how this works, because again, it's not about Israel violating any of those things. It's about Muslims being the perpetual victims, never having any standards for Muslims, and everybody else having to live up to those standards.
I mean, I'm not saying you're saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die.
But with that side tangent aside, there was no threat at all whatsoever here, and anybody who is pretending that there was a threat is a coward.
Did you just say I should die?
You should not.
No,
Did you just say I should be killed?
No, I did not say that. No, I did not say that.
Hold on. Did your guest just say I should be killed on live TV?
I said I hope you're...
Let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper doesn't go off.
So here you have Mehdi Hasan melting down saying, you just said that I should be killed on live TV. You just said that I should be killed on live TV. When again, Ryan did not say that. Not for a moment, not remotely. He even says, I just said I hope your beeper doesn't go off. And then Mehdi Hasan repeats that back to him. So he knows what he said, but he's trying to drag this out to be the perpetual victim because he has no comeback to Ryan's retort. It was so good and so on the spot that Mehdi has to throw a fit, has to play the victim, and everybody on this CNN panel enables him in doing so, and eventually this ends up leading to Ryan being kicked off the panel. And then we get a speech from Abby Phillip about how Ryan crossed the line.
We're back here, and before we get started, I want to just address what happened in the last segment. First, I want to apologize to Mehdi Hasan for what was said at this table. It was completely unacceptable. When we get this discussion started, you'll see that Ryan is not at the table. There is a line that was crossed there, and it's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to us at this network. We want discussion. We want people who disagree with each other to talk to each other. But when you cross the line of a complete lack of civility, that is not going to happen here on this show. It's a heated time. We're in the middle of a political season. We are 8 days from a presidential election. But we can have conversations about what is happening in this country without resorting to the lowest of the lowest kind of discourse. I want to address that, and I want to apologize to the viewers at home because we want to be able to hear each other, we want to be able to talk to each other, and we plan to do that in this next segment.
To everyone over at CNN, including Abby Phillip, spare me the false indignation over this particular joke. What actually happened on this panel, everybody can see it, is that Mehdi Hasan was labeling the entire right-wing Nazis, by the way, people that we actually flew across the world to go kill in combat. So again, that's where Mehdi Hasan's head is at. And Ryan hit him back with a quip, with a joke that was so devastating to him that Mehdi could not retort. So what did he do? He played the victim. He pretended like he was being threatened. And again, I will ask anybody out there in the audience, what is the threat? What was Ryan threatening to do by saying, I hope your beeper doesn't go off? I'll wait for that because this sounds way more like a joke. And by the way, it's a good joke because Hezbollah had their beepers explode. And the reason why that they were attacking Israel, at least their public excuse, was because they're pro-Palestinian. Again, perfectly lined up. Premise, set up, and executed, well delivered. Ryan deserves credit. Now, the one mistake that Ryan did make, in my opinion, is apologizing, because Ryan made the mistake of thinking that he was talking to decent human beings who actually misunderstood what he was saying, so he wanted to clarify that, because he's not actually trying to hurt anybody's feelings. But I, knowing that Mehdi Hasan is insanely dishonest, and by the way, a lot of people have brought up all the things that Mehdi Hasan has said in the past about non-Muslims. You can look that up for yourself, but it's not really germane to this particular situation. Just know that he is not innocent in this kind of crazy rhetoric regard, and in fact, he is significantly worse. But if I were Ryan, I would have doubled down on the jokes. I would have been like, oh, I'm sorry, too soon? You got too many friends recovering in the hospital from that one, Mehdi? I would have hit him twice as hard. And the reason for that is because I am well aware of the tactics that the left likes to use, how they like to hide behind faux outrage and play the victim. And I would know that I was being set up to be painted in a negative way. And if you're going to be set up that way, if they're going to call you those names anyway, you might as well go out in a blaze of glory. And honestly, few people deserve that kind of scorn as much as Mehdi Hasan.
Hey, I'm sure everyone has seen what happened on the show tonight. I just wanted to address one quick thing. As you may have seen, Ryan was asked to leave the show, and we put out a statement saying that he's not welcome back on our air. There is a line here on this program, and it was crossed. But I want to be clear as well that we did not ask Mehdi to not come back. In fact, we really wanted him to come back and finish the show. We had a lot to talk to him about. And we really hope that he'll join us again soon. But for those of you who are wondering why he did not come back, I just want to be super clear that that was not in any way because we didn't want him back at all. And I won't speak for him, but I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that that was not what happened there.
Now, in addition to the on-air bending over backwards and begging Mehdi Hasan for mercy that CNN ultimately ended up doing, for them daring to let somebody who is much smarter than him, much more quick-witted than him, on the air in order to destroy him, Abby Phillip released another video where she said, "We begged him to come back and we didn't want to offend him and it just crossed the line and we're so sad for Mehdi Hasan." And honestly, that is pathetic as well. Also very pathetic is the fact that a bunch of different various people have, of course, decided to paint Ryan Girdusky as this radical Israel supporter. I've talked to the guy for years on Twitter Spaces, never really even heard him mention the state of Israel, if I'm being perfectly honest. And of course, that also leads to people trying to paint him as some kind of a Jewish person or a radical Jewish person, when Ryan is, of course, Italian and Polish. Also, another additional irony that I have to bring up, based on the fact that these people are saying that Ryan issued a threat against Mehdi Hasan, which again, if you just listen to it, you will not hear any threat at all whatsoever, not even an implied threat in anything that Ryan said, is the fact that Ryan is quite literally the author of a book entitled They're Not Listening. I mean, could you get any more ironic if you tried? But again, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me calling out the nonsense from CNN and Mehdi Hasan against Ryan Girdusky. Till next time.